I'm Tonya G. Tune in every Sunday at 2 p.m. for The Tonya G Show. Let's talk health, politics, business, and more. Interested in being a guest? Email us at viralstreamtv.com. Streaming live on ViralStream TV on YouTube, powered by the KPG agency. The Tonya G Show every Sunday at 2 p.m. on BDAY 99.1. Hello and welcome to the Tonya G Show, where we discuss all topics from politics, community, to business, health, and more. Today, my guest is Mr. Stuart Rockoff, Executive Director for the Mississippi Humanities Council. It's a nonprofit corporation funded by Congress through the National Endowment for the Humanities to provide public programs in traditional liberal arts disciplines to serve nonprofit groups in Mississippi. Now, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, that's not the elevator pitch, unfortunately.
Thank you so much for being here.
It is great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, indeed. So tell us a little bit about the Humanities Council. Just break down in layman terms what you do and how you were founded.
Absolutely. We were founded in 1972. And we are essentially the state affiliate for the National Endowment for the Humanities, which is a federal agency that funds kind of humanities programs. Now, if I say the arts, you probably know what the arts are, right? What are the humanities? You've read the traditional. The best way to boil it down to tell people is the humanities are our history and culture.
Okay.
So in Mississippi, it's civil rights history, it's Civil War, it's all the history of the state, it's our literature, it's our music, anything that kind of emerges from the people of our state, we can consider part of the humanities, and we support programs that explore that.
So you were founded in 72.
Yeah.
Talk about just a little bit of that history and why the humanities came to be.
Yeah, and so in 1965, Congress created the National Endowments for the Arts and the Humanities. And the idea was, in the midst of the Cold War, we need to not just fund scientific research, but we need to fund our arts and our culture. That was the idea. And then about 5 years later, they realized that a lot of that money wasn't really having an impact around the state. So how do we take this federal money and really impact places like Mississippi and Kansas and everywhere? So they encouraged states to create a local council that would take some of that federal money and fund more grassroots local projects in their state. So every state has a council.
Gotcha.
Ours was founded in 1972. We were founded by essentially kind of the presidents of Ole Miss and Jackson State and some of the other universities who heard about this and wanted to create something in Mississippi. So we were founded then, and ever since we have taken our mission is to help Mississippians explore their history and culture.
So it does say that it was kind of, I guess at the time there was integration or segregation going on, and that's kind of how it came to be.
Well, the context is important. So think about 1972 Mississippi. So 1970 was the final forced integration of the public schools in our state. So in the early 70s, Mississippi is beginning to deal with these changes being forced from outside. Let's just be honest about that. And so our council from the earliest days, because of how we were founded, because of the involvement of HBCUs and us, knew that we had to deal with the important issues of our day, and the important issues of our day were our racial divides. So from our earliest history, our council has done work that has served the full diversity of our state and that has not shied away from these sorts of difficult issues and brought the value of the humanities to bear on contemporary issues, right? So think about school and funding public education. Understanding the history of public education in this state, back during segregation, back during even earlier, can help us understand the issues that we face today. So we always try to bring those sorts of historical perspectives, on these, on the problems that we still face.
Got you. So right now you have a Crossroads exhibit in Mount Olive.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that. It is a Smithsonian exhibit, that's neat.
I know. So we're a partner with the Smithsonian. We've done it for almost 20 years now, but every 2 years we bring a Smithsonian traveling exhibit to our state. And the idea is to bring it to smaller communities. And so the one that we just opened a few months ago is called Crossroads Change in Rural America. And it opened in Senatobia. It's now in Mount Olive. Now, Mount Olive, Mississippi, last I checked, is about 915 people live in Mount Olive. And so we were able to bring a Smithsonian exhibit to Mount Olive. We were very proud of it. We were there for the opening last week, and it's amazing what they've done there. It's sponsored by the local public library, which is a teeny tiny, like one room little library. They don't have room for the exhibit. Across the street was a building owned by the volunteer fire department that, they had to refurbish, and they refurbished it. They installed air conditioning so it's climate controlled. And so when that exhibit leaves in a few weeks and goes down to Waveland, Mississippi, that benefit of the community will still remain.
So it's an interactive traveling exhibit.
Oh yeah, there's things to see, things to touch, things to watch, things to hear. It's got all kinds of multimedia. It's really, from like small kids can learn something from it to adults can kind of learn about, the culture of rural America, how it's changed over time, what challenges it faced. How can small towns try to kind of rebuild themselves and respond to the challenges of today? So it's a really, really great exhibit.
We're going to take a commercial break, and then I want to get back into that, Stuart. Don't forget, we are live streaming on YouTube at Viral Stream TV. Share this live stream link with your family, friends outside of the Jackson metro area. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Tonya G Show. Bob knows it's never too early for a final expense policy to protect his son. Sue made sure that all their final expense policies are in place. Helen's final expense policy guarantees she won't be a burden to her daughter. Jane's mother's final expense policy covered her final arrangements and so much more. Your final expense policy can cover funeral services, medical bills, debt, and provide cash security. And there are no medical exams required. Call the KPG agency at 601-500-2751 to set up your policy today. COVID has shown us life is not promised. It does not discriminate against race, gender, or age. Do you have life insurance coverage to protect you and your loved ones? Visit thekpgagency.com or call 601-500-2751 to start your policy today.
You're watching Viral Stream TV.
Yes, we are back live with my guest, Mr. Stuart Rockoff, Executive Director for the Mississippi Humanities Council. We were talking about the Crossroads exhibit. Tell us a little bit about how the counties or the cities were selected to be a part of this.
Sure. So when we bring in one of these traveling exhibits, we issue a call for folks to apply, and then that goes to local museums, public libraries, community colleges. And so we have a committee that sort of reviews all the applications and decides. Now, we always try to get around the state, so we have them in different parts of the state so that they're all not, in one region.
Right.
For this particular exhibit, we really were hoping to get small communities. In fact, I think we limited it to places smaller than 10,000.
Just so they would have exposure to that sort of culture.
And because of the theme of the exhibit, it made more sense to go to a small, rural, right. So when we got the application from a place like Mount Olive, I was very, very excited. And they also, they don't just host the exhibit, they also do local programs. They do, they have to kind of do a sort of kind of little exhibit to tell their own community story, so that they kind of supplement this exhibit with their own local stories. So all that's part of the application. And so our outside review committee made their decisions, and I was very pleased that they chose a place like Mount Olive to host it.
Because I was looking on your website, and so November 7th, is that today? November 7th at 10 a.m. they have the impact of rural electrification on South Mississippi. So like every Sunday or Monday, it looks like there is something that's geared for that particular town.
Yeah. Each community chooses their own sort of programs that best fits what they want to do. And so certainly bringing electricity to rural areas was a huge deal. Think about broadband, right? That's the story today, right?
Right.
And so think about the impact of bringing broadband to a rural area. I mean, think about having to go to like remote schooling and virtual learning if you don't have...
Exactly.
So what the exhibit does is it ties those sort of historical developments to issues that we still face today.
Okay. Very, very cool. So the Humanities does a lot of things. I mean, you offer a lot of different programs, grants, and you have this thing called Ideas on Tap.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
The idea behind that program, which we started about 4 years ago, was we wanted to create a space where people can come together and talk about talk about issues sort of across political divides. We wanted to create kind of a neutral space where people can hear different thoughts and opinions. So we started in 2016 talking about the brain drain. Why do young people leave Mississippi? What can we do?
Why do young people
That's
leave?
a whole nother topic. I'll come back next week. We can talk about that. But then, what we try to do is bring a humanities perspective on a contemporary issue. For example, we did one last month about wearing masks. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have a debate about whether you should wear a mask or not, but we said, what are the philosophies behind this? So we had, it was a discussion between individual freedom versus the common good. When is it right to pursue your individual desires?
Right.
But if it hurts other people, how should we balance that? So we had a philosopher on the panel. We had a political theorist who was a conservative on the panel. And we had a political activist, Cassandra Welchland, who gave a really important perspective on as well. So we always try to bring different voices together to sort of address issues from, I guess I would call kind of a deeper perspective.
Kind of talk about that, elaborate a little bit more on that particular topic and just what you all discussed, and what did you find in terms of just the common good, and just, how, I guess, what did you find and how that changed how we're interacting with each other?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's that there needs to be a balance, right? That you can't pursue your self-interest if it harms other people.
Good, right.
And society has a role to limit those freedoms when other people are hurt. The best example is, let's say, drunk driving, right? Mm-hmm. Why can't I drunk drive? I'm only going to hurt myself. No, you can kill other people. So therefore, society has the right to say you can't do that. What I found fascinating was a point that Cassandra Welchland made, and I'm a white guy, so I hadn't thought about this, was that the ideal of individual freedom, which is really at the core of kind of conservative philosophy, looks very different from an African American perspective,
Indeed.
Where they haven't been able to enjoy that individual freedom through much of their time.
Right.
And so that, was for me something that I really took away from that conversation. And again, it shows the value of getting different perspectives on a subject. You have to have it. Right.
So you also had a multi-part series on systemic racism in America. Yeah. Is that something that you're still doing? Has that series concluded?
Yeah, that was right. That was in the aftermath of the George Floyd murder. And again, kind of we thought, where is our role in this? What can we do? We're not a political organization. We, don't make political statements. But we thought, can we bring a deeper understanding for folks who may not know what that means, systemic racism?
Right.
Talk about it in specific ways and bring people in. So we had several of those panels that were designed to try to educate people.
Hold that thought, Stuart.
Yeah.
Don't forget to watch us streaming live on YouTube at Viral Stream TV, powered by the KPGAgency.com. I help people with life insurance, so again, check us out, KPG Agency.
Y'all keep it locked. It's BDAY 99.1.
Hi, I'm Tonya Gray with your Insurance Minute. Final expenses, including the cost of a burial or cremation, can cost a family upwards of $10,000. Many people dedicate a portion of a life insurance payout to covering these costs. Some other common uses for a life insurance payout include paying off your debts, making mortgage payments, paying funeral costs, setting up an inheritance, paying estate taxes, paying medical bills, or just maintaining a certain standard of living. When deciding whether or not to buy a life insurance policy, it is important to start by determining the purpose of the life insurance policy and the amount of desired coverage. The KPG Agency can help you determine just how much life insurance is needed and the term length you should consider buying. It is also important to consider the monthly cost of the insurance. Contact the KPG Agency for a free quote to start a policy today.
Y'all keep it locked. It's BDAY 99.1.
You're watching Viral Stream TV.
Yes, we're back live with my guest, Mr. Stuart Rockoff, Executive Director for the Mississippi Humanities Council. We were talking about just a multi-part series on systemic racism, and continue on with that point.
Yeah, again, our point was to try to bring, so for example, one of the sort of examples that we wanted to talk about was sort of education. and where are school district lines drawn, and why are some school districts better funded? How does our current system of funding public education benefit wealthier districts that tend to be white and hurt those that aren't? And so we, again, got into, how can we look at where things are today, where there's inequality, and how is that rooted in history and structure? And so we had that, and we also had one that talked about housing. And this is more true in other parts of the country, but the way that African Americans were limited in where they could live and how that reflected in property values in terms of passing down wealth, all these things are kind of systemic issues that a lot of white folks hadn't really thought about. So we thought, well, that's what we can do in this moment, is to try to educate people on, to kind of think more deeply on that kind of deep rootedness of the inequalities that we face today.
Right. So you don't just do work just on, I guess, racism. You do housing, education, wealth accumulation. So you have different series that target these different things. What's next?
So with Ideas on Tap, we always try to respond to the moment, right? So with the election this past week, what we're going to do in December, and I think it's going to be December 7th. We haven't quite set the date yet, but it's going to be about polarization. Why are we so divided? What are the things in our culture, in our social media, and that further fuel this polarization?
Right.
And is there a way that we can try to turn the tide? I mean, certainly, there will always be political disagreements.
Indeed.
But what's worried me is that people are getting different sets of news, different sets of facts. And if you can't have if there's no agreement on what is reality,
how do you know what's real? How do you know what to believe?
How can you deal with the problems that we face in our country? So we're going to try to put together some sort of panel discussion on that. That's what we're working on right now.
Look forward to hearing about that. You also have announced a new program in partnership with MS Humanities, which is the Massachusetts and Humanities.
We're excited
Talk
about this
that.
too. So this came out of a conversation I had with the director of the Massachusetts Humanities Council, and he spent many years down in Louisiana, so knew the region. Of how can we bring the people of Mississippi and the people of Massachusetts together to have conversations, to understand each other better, and to deal with the oftentimes misperceptions of outsiders about our state.
Indeed.
And so it's called Miss Mass, crossing boundaries, connecting stories. That's the theme.
Yes.
And so it's so we're going to have the first session is going to be December 3rd, and it's going to be about the stereotypes of each of our states and the portrayals of our state by their writers. So we have the wonderful writer Ralph Eubanks, who's from Mount Olive, actually, and has written books about sort of his family in Mississippi. He now teaches at Ole Miss. And he's writing a new book, actually it's finished, it's not coming out yet, about how Mississippi has been portrayed by its writers. And so he talks about Natasha Trethewey, he talks about Jesmond Ward, William Faulkner, or Welty. And then we've got a professor from Massachusetts, from I think Smith College, who is, understands that literature. And so it's going to be a conversation. But that's just the first. In fact, our next one is going to be in January. I think we're going to talk about flags, state flags. Relevant conversation, because it turns out Massachusetts is beginning to have the conversation how they should change their state flag, because their flag has offensive imagery towards Native Americans. And so they're
being culturally sensitive across the board.
Well, I mean, it's question is
everyone's.
Yeah, does this flag represent who we are in 2020?
Right.
And I think that was the discussion about our state flag here in Mississippi is, does this flag represent who we are as a people? And 72% of our states said that it doesn't, and we need a new one, and we have a new one now. So anyway, so that's an interesting conversation that we're going to bring together folks from Massachusetts and Mississippi who were involved in the effort to change the flag to talk about what kind of went into it, what pushback did they face? So the idea is to take states who seem to be as different as can be and find those commonalities.
So is this a virtual type deal?
Wouldn't be possible in person because,
COVID.
It's going to be virtual. And if folks go to our Facebook page, Mississippi Humanities Council, they'll find a place to kind of sign up for it. It should be really cool.
Okay. Well, we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about what the Mississippi Humanities Council does. It's just a lot of information on your website. I didn't realize how important you are to the state of Mississippi.
Well, thank you.
It is good information, guys. Don't forget, we are live streaming on YouTube at Viral Stream TV. Share the live stream link with your family and friends outside of the Jackson metro area. Also, contact the KPG agency for all of your final expense needs. I have about 12 seconds here, so I have to keep talking. That's the kpgagency.com. I help people with life insurance, so give me a call, 601-500-2751. I'm Tonya Gray with your Insurance Minute. People buy life insurance for a number of reasons. One of the primary reasons is providing income protection for a family in the event a breadwinner passes away. Another reason is providing financial security for children should something happen to the parents. Life insurance can even be a way to offset estate taxes in large estate plans. Another reason some people buy life insurance is to save for retirement. The cash value in some permanent life insurance policies can grow tax deferred, and the cash value can be borrowed at a later date. When using life insurance as a cash savings vehicle, it is important to understand the internal fees and guarantees that are built into the policy. Life insurance should be used as a tool for financial protection in case of death. The KPG agency's focus is to provide financial protection in the most cost-effective way possible. Contact us today to start your policy.
You're watching Viral Stream TV.
Yes, we're back live with my guest, Mr. Stuart Rockoff, Executive Director for the Mississippi Humanities Council. I want to talk about three more things here, and the last thing we're going to get into are your grants. You do have a family reading program, and you and I were talking and said that's kind of been on hold because of COVID. But talk about what that program is designed to do, and you also do work in prison education. So talk about those two for me.
Yeah, in fact, we did a family reading program in a prison earlier this year. So our philosophy is the humanities are for everyone. And so we offer a wide range of programs to serve a wide range of Mississippians. So we do a family reading program engaging storytellers and discussion leaders to work with lower elementary age school kids and their families. It's a 6-week program once a week, and they read 2 books a week. And they don't just read the book together, but they also talk about it and discuss the themes in it. And we do an English language version, and we do a bilingual Spanish language version. Yeah, so there is an amazing program up in Horn Lake, Mississippi that we've supported for many years. All that is on hold because it's really focused on bringing people together in a room, and we're not able to do that safely at this point. But we hope as soon as this thing is over that we'll be able to jump right back into it because it's one of our best programs.
Okay, so and with prison
and that's another one that's on hold because of COVID.
Oh, the prison education.
Yeah, so the last few years we have funded humanities programs, classes in Mississippi prisons. What I'm real excited about is the last year we've been working with Hines Community College and Mississippi Delta Community College to give credit-bearing courses in Mississippi prisons at Parchman and at Central Mississippi Correctional Facility. And so we are in the process of looking for some outside funding. We're hoping to have some good news on that soon. But, we're very, again, the humanities are for everyone.
Right.
And for people who are incarcerated, they have been tremendously enthusiastic about these educational opportunities for them.
Sure.
And so we look forward to expanding that into the future. And certainly once we're past the COVID situation, we're going to hopefully expand it even more and have a huge impact on the state.
Sounds great, Stuart. So let's talk grants.
Oh, yeah.
I have been all through the website. You've done something like $60,000 in grants to 9 Mississippi organizations and support.
That's the most recent one, yeah. I mean, the big thing is that we want to support public programs that explore our history and culture. And I will just tell kind of your audience that our grants are sort of the easiest grant that you'll ever get. Now, they're not huge. The largest grant we give is about
$7,000 or something.
Yeah, $7,500. But we want to work with folks. So if you've never written a grant, if you're part of an organization that has a project that relates to Mississippi history and culture, maybe it's an oral history project, anything that helps your community tell your story, that's a project that we can be able to support. And so what we want folks to do is to call us and talk to us, and we can walk you through the application and help you. We want to support as many of these projects as we can. There was an amazing program we did kind of a couple of years ago up in Shaw, Mississippi. There was an incredible civil rights story there that had been kind of forgotten, of a family called the Hawkins family that organized and pushed for, kind of voting rights and equality, and they were part of a major lawsuit that went all the way up almost to the Supreme Court, just in, kind of the level below, that had a huge kind of precedent for equality of city resources. So, for example, in Shaw, the white part of town had sidewalks and street lights. The black part of town didn't. Black folks pay taxes, same as the white folks. So we funded a project where folks in Shaw did oral histories, collected all that history. They then turned it into a play. And this, it was not a professional production. It was local folks, but it was local folks preserving and telling their own story. And that's a project that we just thought was a great example of the kind of things that we can do. So if folks are listening or watching and have an idea for something, and that fits into that type of idea of kind of telling your story, telling your community story, please be in touch with us, and we'd love to help.
So you don't necessarily have to have a nonprofit organization, do you?
You need to be constituted for nonprofit purposes. You don't need to have a 501c3.
Okay.
So as I said, easiest grant that you'll get. Certainly there's some, things about, having a separate person to manage the money and certain things that we can walk you through. But we are very, very good at working with first-time grant writers because we want to be able to support this important grassroots work around the state.
So you support the grant writers. Do you offer any grant writing courses at all?
We do grant writing workshops, sort of on a regular basis. Well, it's geared toward our grants.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. But, the best thing is our grant person is named Carol Anderson, and Carol does an amazing job of one-on-one consultation. She will, kind of
tell you what you need.
Consult with you on the front end, tell you what aspects that we can't fund, what things we can. We don't like to fund food, so don't, put in kind of reception costs in there. But there are things that we can help support your community work. And so, we take pride in being an accessible grant maker. So we really encourage folks to kind of let us help you.
That sounds good, Stuart. I'd like to know, what has working in this role taught you about your own humanity, and how has it shaped your life?
It's been an extraordinary time. I've been there 7 years now. And one thing I learned is that there is a unique, incredible story everywhere in this state, every corner. And that everyone's story is important and adds to it, and we need to do what we can to help us understand and learn from each other.
That's great, Stuart. I would like to thank my guest, Stuart Rockoff, for stopping by to chat with me today. You can visit the Mississippi Humanities Council's Facebook page to learn more about upcoming events. You can also learn more by visiting their website at mshumanities.org. I could barely see that.
Yeah.
I'd like to do a couple of shout-outs. Shout out to BDAY 99.1 for this awesome opportunity to be able to bring this information to the airwaves. Shout out to Cunning Worker Productions for the awesome production of the show. Please subscribe, like, and share our YouTube channel, Viral Stream TV, to catch up on all other shows and content you may have missed. Also, for all of your final expense needs, contact thekpgagency.com. We'll see you next time on The Tonya G Show.
Y'all keep it locked. It's BDAY 99.1.
You're watching Viral Stream TV.
I'm Tonya Gray with your Insurance Minute. Life insurance comes in many forms, but it helps to first understand the two major types: term life insurance and permanent life insurance. Term life insurance covers the policyholder only for a predetermined amount of time, known as the policy's term. Terms typically last from 5 years up to 40 years, and insurance companies will only pay a death benefit if the policyholder dies within the limits of the term. On average, term policies are the most affordable type of life insurance on the market. Permanent life insurance stays in force for your entire life as long as your premiums are paid on time and in full. Unlike term life insurance, it builds tax-deferred cash value over time. A portion of the premium payments is designated for the cash value component. Value can build over time and at different rates depending on the type of permanent policy you have. Contact the KPG agency to find out more and start your policy today.
Y'all keep it locked. It's BDAY 99.1.
I'm Tonya G. Tune in every Sunday at 2 p.m. for The Tonya G Show. Let's talk health, politics, business, and more. Interested in being a guest? Email us at viralstreamtv.com. Streaming live on Viral Stream TV on YouTube, powered by the KPG Agency. The Tonya G Show every Sunday at 2 p.m. on BDAY 99.1.